I want to talk about metal detector discrimination. And boy, I wish someone had explained this when I first joined metal detecting so I could understand what it's all about. It's a good idea to join a club. Other people can help you explain it. But basically, some detectors just have dials. Some detectors have buttons with an LCD display screen, and some of the older ones have just a meter with numbers on it. So how does discrimination work? When you turn on your detector, the coil generates an electrical field, and there's some little bits of iron and copper and lead inside the soil. Some of the electrical field energy bounces back, and that's what we call ground balance, which we're not going to discuss right now. But when you go over a coin, now the electrical field will generate a little electric current in the coin. It's called an eddy current. And this eddy current in the coin creates its own magnetic field, which is pretty much opposite in direction to the electrical field generated by the metal detector. So in effect, it pushes back on that field, and it creates what we call a phase shift. Now, the depth and the size of the coin and the quality of the coin determine how much phase shift you get. And if we look at this next dial, you can see that if you get something like, you can almost picture this in your mind, a piece of junk like a piece of iron, very little phase shift, very little echo from the electrical current, and you'll get a phase shift just a little bit, and you see the dial there says things like iron and nails and pull tabs. If you get something pure like a silver dime, though, that's going to generate a stronger current and stronger field that opposes the field from the coil, and you get a larger phase shift. Now, the metal detector can tell you if that phase shift is large or small, and with fine tuning you can tell if it's a nickel or a dime or a quarter or just a piece of junk. And that's what phase shift discrimination is all about. It distinguishes new detectors from the older ones would just beep every time you found a piece of metal. So let's look at some of the current metal detectors. We're going to cover three of them. The Silver UMax, which is about $220, $250. The Garrett H250, which is about $212, I think is the going price. And the White's MXT, several $100s. You'll notice on the Silver UMax that there's no display, it's just the dials. So the dials for this one, the discrimination is on the left there. Now here's the trick for discrimination on the Silver UMax. If you set the dial to just below the 5-cent piece, then foil and iron will not create a beep in your detector. So if you get a signal, it could be a 5-cent piece, a tab, a penny, or anything of higher phase shift. Here's the trick. If you get a signal and you want to know if that's a tab, a pull tab, or a 5-cent piece, you put the dial just above the 5-cent piece but below the tab. Now if that signal drops out, that means you have a nickel in the ground. If the signal does not drop out, it could be a tab, a penny, or anything higher. I'll repeat that, because that's the heart of the whole thing. If you set it below 5-cent piece and you get a signal, it could be a 5-cent piece or anything higher, including the pull tabs. If you set it just above the 5-cent piece and that signal drops out, what you've just made drop out is a nickel. So that's how you can tell. You can tell the same thing between a tab and a penny, or a penny and a quarter, by adjusting that discrimination dial on the UMax. That's how discrimination works, and that's the heart of it. Let's look now at the Garrett H250. You'll see that there are bands, and some of them are lit up in black on the LCD display and some of them are not. You'll notice that the mode on this is set for coins, and you'll see that the black band for a nickel is on the left there, and then all the other coins higher are black. That means you can pick up any of the coins. Now, pull tabs, if you look closely, are between the nickel and the penny, and that area is notched out. That's what the notch bands are for. Now, these bands are pretty broad, so you can lose some jewelry in there when you notch out the pull tabs in this coin mode. This is a pretty advanced detector because you can set the notches on or off for any of those bands. The trouble is those are fairly wide bands and you can lose jewelry sometimes. But that's the next step up in the ability to discriminate, and it becomes very handy if you know which bands are in and out while you're detecting. Now in the MXT, the discrimination is a little more fine-tuned. Instead of having bands, they'll use numbers called VDI numbers, visual display indicator numbers, so that a quarter might be 82 and a dime might be 80 and a penny might be 72 and a clad penny might be 67. So you get a lot more detail in there, and what happens is after a while you get to know what numbers represent which coins. On my detector, the MXT, a nickel is almost always 18 or 20, a 37 is a pull tab, 77 to 80 is a penny or a dime, and higher than that is a quarter or larger coins. So let's take so that has a lot more detail than the Silver UMAX, which just has categories. Anyway, let's take a look at how it works in practice with. I'm using a White's MXT, and I'll show you how we set this up. Set the mode to coins and jewelry. This is the on-off switch, and it's also the sensitivity. Normally put that at the triangle there, about 9.5. This is the discrimination, and you can see it goes down from 0, where it's nails and iron, up to nickels, and then pull tabs are about 6 there, and nickels are about 4. I like to keep it pretty low, which is almost all metal. And then the threshold. For the best sensitivity, you want it to make just a little noise in your headphones. That's a little bit too loud. Right about there, so that when you get something, it's at its maximum sensitivity. So let's try it on some pull tabs and nickels, and you can see the difference. Here's the display, just showing VDI number right now, and I've got some nickels and tabs set up on a green screen so it's easy to see. 5 tabs for me are generally around 37 right there. Here's another tab. This one's smaller, so it's coming in as 18, 20, 14. Jumping around. That jumping around is the detector's way of telling you it's not sure what it is. So let's do a nickel now and let's see what happens. Couple things. You notice the sound is very solid and steady. So there you have it. You can see the nickel always comes up as 18 or 20 on my MXT, and the pull tabs always come up as 37, and that way you can know whether to dig or not, which is the biggest decision, and that's how discrimination helps. Anyway, I hope this talk has helped you. If you need more help, I've written a book on the subject.